Is there anything that we have not covered that you really think I need to be thinking about, the church needs to be thinking about? Bishop, you need to think about this, or you're not acting on this on the basis of your experience of the needs of the students today?
There was a survey that was done in 2011 and 2013 where 5,000 U of A students were polled. And they looked at mental health, and they looked at physical health and academic health and everything. And during that, they found it was something like 30% of students had felt so overwhelmed that they couldn't function.
30%?
Over the course of the last 12 months. They found 8% of those 5,000 had seriously considered suicide, and 1.4% had attempted suicide. So it's substantially higher than the general population. So one student that comes to mind, we'll call her Karen. She arrived in my office, and to see her, you know, she looks like what my kids would say was one of the cool kids.
Right.
Dressed fashionably, hair done, makeup done, couldn't make eye contact with me. And talking to her just even that first time, learning what she's going through, coming to university for the first time, feeling separated from the community that she grew up with. So she has her family, she has her friends, they live not in Edmonton. So you're coming here, immediately you're isolated. She's somebody who had been diagnosed with anxiety. She feels like she's just lost in the crowd. She's just a number. She's in seminars with hundreds of people, and she doesn't feel like she knows anyone. So now all of a sudden, it's not just this anxiety that she's always dealt with. Now she's having thoughts of suicide on top of that. A lot of that experience of anxiety and is connected to loneliness. It's connected to not feeling a sense of community, a place that I belong to, that I'm accepted unconditionally. And ultimately we know too that it comes down to feeling like I'm known and loved by a God unconditionally as well, right? But I got to experience journeying with her as just an example of a student, and now she's at a place where she is tapped into community here at the college, and she's in a totally different space than she was when I first saw her. And I feel like it's a poignant example, and why I bring it up as well, because one of the issues I have is around social media. I feel like students have been raised in that generation of social media. They've learned this as a coping strategy for how to deal with my loneliness and anxiety. But yet studies show that people who use more social media actually experience more loneliness and anxiety. So it's not actually helping. What they're seeing on the outside is not the reality of what happens for people. And so that was one of the first things that we talked about, was how we connect on our broken bits. We don't connect with others on our perfection.
Sure.
And so the more we can be vulnerable and actually experience community in a really real sense, the more that's going to push us out of that isolation.
When I go back to when I first transitioned from high school to university, or even younger, junior high to high school, there's an amount of anxiety and worry that I think just normally goes along with that.
Sure.
But when I hear about a student coming in here and going through all the what I would call the normal anxiety associated with transition, contemplating suicide,
it just seems like a big jump.
Well, like, is there something more going on? And I think maybe you're starting to highlight that.
If you're experiencing success and achievement in your life, that can lessen, I think, for people, the experience of loneliness and anxiety. And they see that partly from the people that they're seeing on social media and things like that. And that can get really exacerbated at university, because you're in this environment that values success and achievement. But then when things fall through, that everything comes crashing down and there's nothing there to catch them. One of the big questions is, does God have one particular plan for my life? Or does God care which path that I take?
Oh, I see.
So really, like, how do I know? How do I discern amongst all these voices? A big push for students is the opinion of my parents. what are they going to approve of? And even down to like what program they're in, oftentimes is not the program they want to be in. It's a program that would be accepted in their family. I see that a lot. And so you're struggling with someone who they're trying to hear God's voice, but maybe God's voice is saying you aren't actually even on the right path right now.
And what about the discernment side? Your support there? Is part of the struggle also trying to be open with your friends about this? Not coming across as sort of weird and abnormal or something?
Well, I can think of another one that just fits into what we're talking about right now. And I'll call him Bob. Yep. And Bob was in business and felt like all of his family members all the way down had been businessmen. And this was what was expected then, just for him to go into business. But he was feeling like he was really called to ministry and actually to be like a pastor. And but he felt that it would just be utter disappointment for his family, and to go down that path, I can't tell you how many conversations and praying with him and exploring this. And ultimately, he's on the business path. He's now graduated. And but even the thought too of like, how could I tell my parents that they're not going to have grandkids?
Yep.
It was hard. I didn't have the answers for him. I can't ultimately say disappoint your family. But all I could do was support him and be with him in that. And I think he did have a really clear sense of what God wanted for him. I think he knew.
And how are you helping them with that?
I do try to give them concrete tools along the way, whether it's Ignatian tools for discernment or just how, little things, where do you feel peace? When you think about this decision, do you feel peaceful about it? If you feel full of anxiety and dread, talking to them about what are the fruits. Where is God? Is God in the fear? Or that's not to say that sometimes there's hard decisions that we dread, but we know we're supposed to do. And so I just talk about those things with them.
On the mental health issue, right? They're all aware that others are struggling, that they're struggling, but
I don't know if they are.
Okay.
Something I say to my students all the time is don't compare the outside of someone else's life with the inside of yours, because
that's a great way to put it.
That's what they do that constantly. And that's why I really try to encourage them to find a place where they feel comfortable opening up and sharing that part of themselves, because other students need to hear it too.
But that's that exposing your own vulnerability takes a whole lot of courage,
it does.
And a whole lot of faith. Another thing that I wonder about, and this is because of what I'm seeing and hearing just more broadly in society, is how family dysfunction fits into this. Whether there's been domestic violence, whether there's been divorce, whatever, substance abuse within the home. I
think a lot of students don't have the skills or don't know how to come and build a community. They don't know how to be vulnerable and experience that, and I think it starts in the family for sure. There's a lot of guys that don't know what it means to be a good husband or a good father. There's a lot of women or young women who don't know what it's going to be like to be a strong wife and mother and a support to their family, and they are seeking those answers. So I think that's the part that's encouraging, is I think a lot of students are aware that there's a lack. They are aware of where they're missing skills.
I know from my own experience, I've been here, I try to come here, I think it's once a semester or so to celebrate Mass. I've always been edified really by that sense of the community that gathers in the chapel. Very reverent, faith-filled. And how are you seeing that experience of the Eucharist spill out?
Well, I think even the fact that we gather for Eucharist is so important. There is daily Mass, but the Sunday liturgy as well, and for the students to experience being with other students. For some of them, it's the first time they've been at a Mass where it's all young people. All of my students who I think faith is a big component of their life have a sense that they're swimming upstream a little bit. They do have the sense of I'm not outright persecuted for my beliefs, but they aren't definitely not accepted.
Here at St. Joseph's College, when we refer to the University of Alberta, often it's in terms of across the street, across the street at the university, as it were. So here at St. Joseph's College, we offer an opportunity for students to have a community faith, to be deepened and strengthened in their faith, to be challenged in it, all the dialogue that goes on. But do you have any dialogues with them about what happens when they go across the street? So when they come out of this safe environment for talking about their faith and so on, to one that could be hostile, allergic to the faith, just by being on another part of the university campus, and how that changes for them when they know that somehow they're supposed to witness to their faith in an environment that may not welcome it.
I do hear a lot that they feel like they have to censor themselves, that it's not an accepted thing to talk about being a Christian or your faith. It's I think people right away get their guard up. They think that, they're going to judge me, or they're going to, they think that they're other than or better than me or whatever. And so it breaks down relationships. That's what I hear from my students. That's their fear, is that if I share that I'm a Christian, it will put up a wall between me and them.
And yet, are they trying? Like, do they try to share?
I don't know if they really do.
Yeah, because that could be a major factor to keep them from giving witness, that fear of the rejection and so on.
Yeah, it is, for sure.
I wonder what more we can do to help them with that, or help the environment be receptive to that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a dialogue that the college administration has had with the university administration, but it might be something that we could pursue a little bit. But to be honest, I don't know what more we can do on that, or
I feel like
we should be doing more. We should be. Yeah.
There's almost a sense of I don't know how to word this properly, but like, if you're Christian, you should automatically feel accepted because it's part of our society. We're in a Christian society. That's what society kind of thinks. That I think people don't realize that. Exactly. That they're actually experiencing that I actually don't feel like I'm part of this society in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. If you're not Christian and you're part of the broader society, you might just presume that because it's Christianity that shaped Western culture, that everybody who's Christian must feel at home
like they belong.
Here.
Yeah.
When in fact, from within the Christian reality right now, we know that the culture is
quite hostile.
Quite hostile.
Thank you. You just articulated what I was thinking.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you so much.
I hope it was helpful.
Oh, I think so.